Ali, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You have built a fabulous company. I can see the interest that people have at this fabulous conference. We get great keynotes and over the years, and you are definitely a rock star here today. So thank you.
You're too kind. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk briefly at the 30,000 feet level of the landscape and where Databricks is and how they are positioning going forward, especially with the AI.
Yeah, so every large organization, they have lots of proprietary data that is not on the web. We help them organize that, break the silos, take it out of all these places where it's locked in. That's number one. So get all the data in one place. Number two, we help them set security and governance on it because it's very important. You don't want to have your very sensitive data leak and get out. And then number three, we help them do AI, analytics, get the insights from the data because the data itself is alone useless. You got to do something with it. So those are the three things we do, and this is the most important problem. Every company on the planet right now wants to get value out of AI, but they can't do that if they can't get their data strategy in a good place. So helping them collect all the data, secure it, and then build the use cases of AI on top of it. That's what we're helping them. I think close to 70 to 80% of Fortune 500 use us. So every company needs to solve this problem.
So if you look as a leader, there are two ways. One is to inspire and empower your own team to become better leaders at the organization. And the second part is looking broadly at the ecosystem. There's a lot of other hundreds of thousands of startups who are trying to enter the similar space, who want to follow what you're doing and get to know you. So two different questions on leadership. How do you address that and make them better leaders and also help empower the ecosystem?
Yeah, so you have to groom and grow your leaders internally. So, if Databricks is successful, that means we have groomed and we have a lot of great leaders at the company. If we don't have great leaders that we've groomed, the company will fail. It's not a one-man show. It's not the CEO is great and therefore the company. You have to do this. So that's what you have to invest. How do you do that? You have to figure out what is exactly the culture of your company, and then you have to train your future leaders in what it means to be a leader at Databricks. Being a leader at Databricks is not the same as being a leader at IBM. Or at Microsoft, or at Oracle, or at any other company, Meta. It's specific to us. So you have to really invest in grooming, and you have to identify the talents, the diamonds in the rough that, they're not yet the great leaders, but you can see something in them. They have followership, they have energy. Start grooming and investing them. And it's easy for a company, like us that's now 10 years old. We have our leaders, and they've been with us for 10 years. We just focus on those, and then we ignore the younger talent that exists in the company. That's a big mistake. So you have to always pay attention and spend energy on who are the kids who we can groom to become the next generation of leaders. So that's, it's just, there's nothing else to it that you have to spend energy on this. And I think a lot of leaders in many companies maybe don't have the time to spend energy because you're focused on competing. You're focused on building products. You're focused on growing your revenue growth. You're focused on meeting all your customers. You don't have time for, trying to focus on the internal leadership. So that's one. The second question you ask is about ecosystems. That's extremely important. The greatest companies on the planet that have succeeded, they are platform companies. What that means is many, many other companies built on top of them. So therefore they became unbeatable, right? Because, if you take an Amazon, right, or even a Microsoft, that's the reason they're unbeatable is that there's a whole ecosystem around them of millions of other companies that are dependent on them. So you cannot beat those companies by just having a better product. You have to also displace that ecosystem. So you have to just invest in the ecosystem. How do you invest in the ecosystem? You have to figure out, instead of everybody's focused on how am I going to help my company win? I need to grow my revenue. I need to have good leaders. That's how I'm going to win. But you have to also focus on how can I make others win, right? If you're running a company in the ecosystem, I have to prove to you that you will make a lot of money and your company is going to be very successful if it works with me. So it's not about me, my company being successful. It's about how can I help you be successful with your company. And you have to build that programmatically for thousands of companies out there, thousands of startups, thousands of partners. If you can help all of them be successful, then they see interest in working with you. And then that way you're building that ecosystem.
Personally for you, have been some inspirational leaders around that you imbibe those good vibes from. Who do you look up to when you are kind of put in a tight spot? Because there's a very, very competitive landscape. Yeah. You have to always one step ahead of the competition. So that's the first question I had. And the follow-up question to that is, as you're looking at, you have to also have a work-life balance,
Yeah.
which is very important for your own sanity and well-being.
Yeah.
So, and then how do you kind of try to do that as well?
Yeah, on the leaders, there's not one leader that I look up to. I think that you can pick and choose. What each of them brought to the table that was amazing, and it was just different than anyone else, right? So there's many. I think Bill Gates and his sort of tech savviness and understanding all of the tech of a very technologically savvy company back in that day is super, super impressive. Jobs with the sort of amazing design and attention to quality. Jeff Bezos for building a machine, just like a machine that it's a factory that will produce other things in the future. He just set up that factory, and specifically I would say the way he focused it on customer obsession. I think Satya today with Microsoft, how they think about strategy, how they focus on strategy. Look at what they just did with OpenAI, right? How that's completely transforming everything around them. I think Google leaders, the original founders of Google, the technological talent and technological prowess that they had is unmatched by any other company ever, right? So how did they accomplish that? What did those leaders do? Those CEOs and the founders, Larry and Sergey, they must have done something special for that. So what can you learn from those aspects? So I think you look at each company, they have some crazy strength. That comes typically from those founders or CEOs, whoever was running that company for a decade. Try to learn from them on that aspect. Each of these companies also, I think, also had many things that they were bad at. So, just following a leader blindly, you will get all those downsides. So you shouldn't do that. We don't want the downsides of each of these companies that I mentioned. So that's what I would say. On work-life balance, I'm not sure I'm the right guy to ask about this question. I'm not sure I have good work-life balance. Or I'm not sure I have balance between I think I have a work-life blend, But I think every person should know their limit and make sure that they don't burn themselves out. So figure out something that's sustainable, that will work for 2-3 decades. You should not be operating in a mode that you're pushing so hard that it's only going to last, 5 years. And then by the end, you're more or less burned out. You're still working, but you're basically done. And that's the biggest thing I would say. I focus on that. So I make sure that I never work more or make it more intense than something that I can. Like if we're running, I'm running at the pace that I know I can run another 50 miles or 100 miles. That's the pace I'm running. If you're running so fast that if someone told you you're going to run another 100 miles, you would just fall down right now. You're making a mistake.
Sustainability is the key.
Exactly.
Yeah. So my last question then is, America, is a land of immigrants. It gives so much opportunities for us, especially in Silicon Valley. It gives opportunity for many entrepreneurs who come and do that. You mentioned 2 great entrepreneurs from Indian origin. You're at the IIT conference, and IITs have done amazingly well. Your take on, how, first of all, Silicon Valley is unique, and how Indians in general and IIT in particular have been able to do so well.
Yeah. Well, I think that in countries that we come from, you have large masses of population, and people have to work very, very hard. So when they come here for that opportunity, they work their butts off. They're smart, they're talented, and they don't take anything for granted, and nothing was given to them. So it's no surprise. I mean, if you take, for instance, Indian CEOs, most of them are actually middle class. Came from a very hard-working background. They were very, very talented, very well educated. I think that's also something that people sometimes forget, that India, when it built out the education system with the IITs and also the other universities, it was game-changing. Like, let's say India had not had the IITs. Where would it have been now? Would we have seen, the talent that we see and the impact that we see in Silicon Valley? I don't think so. So, so that was a fertile ground. And, I think that's the great thing about the United States. It basically invites, and I hope it continues inviting, that kind of talent and makes it so great for them that they come here. Because if it's not great here, we're seeing a trend where more and more people are now just staying back home. Because it's actually quite great back home now too, and it pays pretty well. There's a trend now in that direction, especially when it comes to India, right? Where it's like, I can get paid quite a bit, and I can stay in Bangalore, and why should I move to Silicon Valley? So I think, I hope that those of us who live here, make it so amazing for folks from all around the world, but also specifically, India and the top talent that is there, that they come here and help build the next generation of companies. I mean, the United States is great. It's doing well because it had amazing GDP growth. Why did it have amazing GDP growth? It's largely in the last 20 years thanks to tech. you know, who led those tech companies and who built them. And it's not just about the CEOs, the Satyas of the world. It's about the, you know, hundreds of thousands and millions of other employees in those companies too. They also come from those places and they work very, very hard. So how do we invite them to come here and continue succeeding and continue nurturing them, no matter what your background is? We got to continue doing that. And sometimes I think we take it for granted over here, you know, yeah.
All right, on that note, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate you coming and talking.